Today, our goal for today is to help educators connect with and hear from local employers regarding the critical jobs and skills required for today's workforce. And I looked over the roster and we have a little over 50 people signed up. I want to say it was up to 55, Kevin, as of yesterday or right around there. The majority are counselors. We do have some administrators in, so a couple of principals, assistant principals. We even have about 25 or so, about 50% close to our Kent County representatives. We have a lot of people from across the state. So I'm really excited about that today. And if this is the first time you've done anything like this and you saw this as an opportunity for SCECHs, but this is a first for you, please, we encourage feedback. We definitely want you to be actively engaged and would love to hear from you what you thought about this. And we're going to be doing more of these throughout the rest of the year. My name is Eric Kelleher. I am a career readiness consultant with Kent ISD. And my colleague, Krista Harmon, also a career readiness consultant, there she is also joining us today. She's going to be helping me with our chat boards and just kind of helping to moderate everything. A couple of things I just wanted to make sure that you knew, first and foremost, this session is for you. And I think I sent an email out to almost everybody yesterday, just reminding you that because the session is for you, I really, really encourage you to be active participants. And I know that there's going to be a video portion where we watch the recorded video, and there's going to be panel discussion, and it's a little bit easier in this type of setting to allow yourself to be more passively involved. But we really encourage your questions. That is what we have the chat box for. So if at any point, whether it be during the video that you're watching, an idea comes to you, a great comment that you want to share, or a question, don't wait until later to share your question. That's the great beauty of the chat box. Put it in there now, and we'll try to circle to that at some point. But we really want your active engagement because we've got several guests on here willing to answer your questions. A couple of other things. This program is being recorded, so just keep that in mind. We're going to be showing this at on demand later. It'll be reposted to the PD Hub in about 2 to 3 days. So if for whatever reason you're not able to stay through the whole thing, or to be completely honest, I'm hoping that you pass it along to some of your colleagues. For those of you who are counselors or administrators, and you see this like there's a lot of meat in here, I really want this to get in the hands of my colleagues. Please pass it along. They can watch it after the fact, on demand, still for a full sketch. And my hope is that we get many times over the number of people watching over the course of the school year. Also, just this is a very important housekeeping item. Please keep in mind that there is a sketch for this. It is going to be offered as one career sketch for those of you who are school counselors. But please note that in order for you to receive the sketch for this program, you must maintain and stay through the entire session, as well as you have to complete the survey at the end of the event, which I will put the link up for that. And in that later, I will provide a 6-digit code that is required for you to even be able to submit the survey. So keep that in mind, that there's a 6-digit code provided later so that you can complete the survey in order to get the sketch. Today's event will be going for about 60 to 75 minutes. Just depends upon what the questions look like. And my hope is that we get a lot of them. So with that, I would like to introduce Kevin Johnson. How you doing, Kevin?
Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday.
So Kevin is a group manager over at Configura. Kevin and I have worked together on a few different projects now. He has been a great proponent of our Educators in Industry program. And he is the point person, but we've got 3 other people from Configura who are also going to be panelists and talking with us today. And Kevin did a pretty cool job at knowing that this is different and unique from what we've done in the past. He went ahead and created this awesome video. He interviewed some people ahead of time. So while those people who were interviewed, you won't be able to ask them direct questions, please post the questions because A, maybe Kevin or some of his colleagues can address it, or B, he can take it back to them. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our video.
Hi, my name is Kevin, and welcome to Configura. Kinda? At Configura, we've loved the opportunity to partner with the Kent ISD and expose students and teachers to what it's like working in the field of technology. We're going to do it a little bit differently this year, but we're really excited that you all are participating. Configura started 30 years ago as a small software company in Sweden and has expanded across the globe. I work in our office in Grand Rapids, which is home to our US operations. We still have our headquarters in Sweden, as well as offices in China, Germany, and Kuala Lumpur. We have one special office that I thought you might be interested learning a little bit more about as well.
We measure our impact on the world in both small and large increments, and the desire, determination, and dedication of just one individual can be the catalyst for change. When that individual is joined by others, the impact continues to grow, paving the way for unlimited possibilities. This is the island of Similu on the west coast of Indonesia. And this is the story of how one person made a donation to a non-profit on this island, which grew into something none of us at Configura could have ever imagined. It all began when one of the original Configura owners, Niels Madsen, donated to an Indonesian non-profit called Haka. Each year, the Haka save about 200,000 eggs of endangered turtles, thanks to their rangers who patrol the beaches of Bangkaru Island. The rangers prevent the destruction of nests and turtle egg poaching. Over the years, Niels continued to donate and began securing additional financial resources from Configura. But his passion ran deep and knew he wanted to do more. So he developed a small, eco-friendly resort to provide employment for local residents and a destination for tourists who care about the environment. Fast forward to 2019, Hakka has protected roughly 300,000 hatchlings from poachers. And today, they have nearly eliminated the poaching of eggs on the island. In true Configura fashion, Niels and the team at Configura wanted to push the boundaries even further, and we were inspired to do more. Last October, Configura opened an office in Similu to provide alternative job opportunities for residents. Jobs in technology are rare for this rural region, which primarily relies on farming and fishing as a source of income. By providing computer and QA skills, we hope to help educate future generations of residents about technology.
We are Simu Configura. Welcome to our office.
What began as a small donation from Niels to help preserve the environment has grown into something much greater thanks to the group at Haka and Configura. Whether you are protecting the environment or you are relaying others to teach kids the program, remember that change starts with one small moment. So, how will you be a catalyst for change to make a difference in our world?
As an organization, Configura has over 250 employees across the globe. Here in Grand Rapids, we have about 60 employees who work primarily in software development, project management, support and training, as well as sales and account management. The software solution that Configura provides is configuration software that's used primarily in the material handling, office furniture, and kitchen and bath design industries across the globe. Oftentimes people ask me what my favorite part of working with Configura is, and hands down, it's the opportunity to collaborate with configurants across the globe. It's not uncommon for me to hop on a morning meeting that has my colleagues from Sweden or Germany, as well as KL and China participating. It's awesome to work for an organization that has so many different cultures represented. One of the great pieces of Swedish culture that we've adopted in our Grand Rapids office is the idea of fika. Fika translates really simply into coffee break, but we celebrate Fika each Friday morning as an office where we have all 60 plus configurants that are based in Grand Rapids broken down into teams. Those teams rotate through and make breakfast for the office. So traditional Swedish breakfast is pretty simple. It's usually a variety of breads, lunch meats, veggies, maybe some fruit. And we definitely do that to connect with our Swedish roots as an organization. But some teams really go above and beyond, making fancy casseroles and bacon. We get so much bacon in here. It's a fantastic way to not only connect with our colleagues here in Grand Rapids, but to stay connected to our culture, the Swedish culture that we embrace. All right. I'm sure that you guys are pretty tired of hearing from me at this point. So let's connect with a couple other configurants and hear about their roles here within the organization. I'm going to take a little rest.
So my job is I'm developer support. It's a pretty interesting and unusual position, I think, even amongst tech companies, because Configura doesn't only have developers in-house. We have developers outside of Configura that work on our same platform. They sometimes need like a helping hand or have issues that they don't understand, or sometimes even our internal people have issues that they're having trouble with. My job is to kind of get people back to developing to help solve like hard programming questions, difficult, why is this happening type stuff. And sometimes like a little bit of like emergency management when the time calls for it. I went to school to be a math teacher, actually. I took a class that kind of changed my mind about that. And so then I decided I wanted to do like physics teaching for a little while. And then the teaching kind of dropped out actually because of another class. So I just went with like a physics degree because I kind of have a passion for everything. There's not really any one particular subject I find more interesting than the rest except science. So that's what I kind of always went with, even though I didn't really have an idea of what I was really for sure going to do. Then after school, I actually went to my first job, which was I tested infotainment. Sorry, first like full time, career type job. Went and tested infotainment centers full time for Mazda. So like they have, like the infotainment centers that you use in your car. Did that for a while. Got another job testing somewhere else. Same sort of thing. It was actually a beverage dispenser warehouse company and like their software. And the testing thing was fine, but there wasn't a lot of like passion in it for me. It was really just kind of like a 9 to 5. Didn't really enjoy it that much. Wasn't really using my skill set all that much, but I did learn a lot about programming, which is going to come in handy later. My next job was my last job, which was actually I worked as a vehicle dynamics engineer. So essentially, I got a friend of mine was like, "We're looking for somebody who sounds exactly like you. Are you interested in moving down to Virginia and like helping us out?" So I did that for I think 4 years. And I really liked parts of the job a lot. It was a pretty interesting gig. We had a $14 million tire testing machine that I was like sometimes responsible for like helping get something moving on. We had, oh man, it's just basically there's something vehicle related I was in on at some point. Probably the most impressive project I had is I worked on a semi-active shock system. What that means is like it's a electronically controlled shock. So like if too much action is happening, the shock reacts to that and tries to adjust. So like those are probably the most interesting things I did there. And I didn't really like the sort of startup company feel that place had. It was very much had just started. And we just had a child, my wife and I, so we kind of were looking for a job back in Michigan. And a friend of mine works at Configura. I was like actually asking him about a completely different job. I thought Configura was kind of out of my league because keep in mind, physics major, self-taught programming the whole way, not expecting to get the big boy programming job, but apparently I'm better than I thought I was. So I ended up working at Configura. I did the application and the tryout day and stuff. And I started as like an actual regular, developer. And after a couple months, there's an opening in developer support, and I got kind of pushed into that as like, hey, this is an interesting way to train the new guy. Like, we'll try to have him solve the really hard problems and see what happens. And I ended up being so good at it that I left for a while and came back to it. And now I'm doing it full time. So yeah, I started out in math. I always liked math. I was always pretty good at it. Just, I don't know, something about it really excites me, I guess, which I know is really boring to some people, but it is, I always thought it was cool, kind of a problem solving thing. Got into that for a while. Kind of hit a weird roadblock where I was like, well, like, what if I don't teach math? Then what can I do with that? I didn't feel like there was anything, although now I know there's actually plenty. But at the time, I was like, I don't really know what I can do with that. So I ended up switching to physics because I never took a physics class in high school or anything. The last time I took a physics class was actually in 8th grade. And I didn't know what physics was. And like what that subject matter encompassed entirely. And then I learned, and I was like, wait, this is the coolest stuff in science. I always liked this stuff. So I went and took a class, and I was like, nope, this is it. This is what I'm doing. I'm in. So I kind of pursued that the rest of the way through. And then where things get to the configure part is kind of interesting. I took a programming class. I did very poorly. I think I passed it with a C, and didn't feel super great about it. In fact, the friend that got me the job here at Configura, he actually helped me a lot getting through that class and stuff. Didn't think I had a knack for it or an interest in it or anything like that. And when you, at least the university I went to, when you graduate, you have to take a capstone course. It kind of has to prove to the community in like your major that you deserve your degree, and you have to get together with a professor and talk about a project. And you specifically work with that professor almost the entire time. And I went to a professor who was my least favorite teacher, but my favorite person, if that makes sense. So not very good at teaching, but really great to hang out with, kind of thing. And I was like, hey, I have these ideas for projects. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, that's not really how it works. Usually you go up to a professor and you say, hey, what do you have for me? And I was like, oh, okay. And it turned out I got on the train way too late. And I went around and asked every physics professor in a row, basically, that was like had their door open. And I got to the end of the hallway, and one of the professors I really liked, but I didn't really know how to feel about her. I went to her room, and I was like, hey, looking to do, a capstone thing. Like, what do you have? And then she said, oh, okay, what do you? I see. And she pulled out this thing, and she's like, yep, I do the same thing with like all the capstone students, the exact same curriculum. The idea is that you get two options. One is quantum mechanics based, and one is statistical mechanics based. They're both computer projects. And I was like, oh no, you gotta be kidding me. And she was like, yeah, I mean, I'm a computational physicist. I'm like, well, what do you do? And she told me basically they're like a bridge between theoretical physicists and experimental physicists. So like, you don't want to spend billions of dollars making the wrong thing, and you don't really want, like, theoretical physics is cool and all, but like it works on paper, not practice. So you need something to kind of like be cheap to determine that there's some merit to this thing. So basically that was her job. And so what I ended up doing was I proved that magnets lose their magnetism by heating up using a computer to do that. So I wrote one of my first like serious computer programs for my senior, like, I don't want to call it a thesis exactly, but my paper for my capstone class. And that kind of started changing my mind about like the whole computer science thing, because I think having something I was more interested in doing made it a little more interesting for me to do it, versus the sort of like teaching of like, hey, this is like an abstract concept that you're going to apply for an abstract reason. It was a lot more exciting to get into the field and like do something on my own, and like sort of like that. And then I thought, well, I'm probably not going to do this anymore anyway. Kind of shoved it in my back pocket. And then actually at my first job, I ended up being responsible for, we had a test rig, which was basically just like a battery hooked up to a um, an infotainment center that would basically act as if you turn on a vehicle. So that was the other catalyst too. So basically, like, it showed me like I needed to learn these. I needed to reiterate the programming skills I had, and also like I actually kind of liked it. Then I had opportunities to actually use it, and that's where I kind of ended up here. So I want to be a teacher because I had so many teachers I felt that way about. But I'm trying to limit it to like the ones that I think had the biggest impact. And I can think of two, and they're both in college and they're actually married. So Maya Kirkmar was the woman that like I went to, and I was like, hey, I need to do this this senior project, and I'm looking for somebody to get with to do that or whatever. And she said, and we talked a little bit. We kind of discussed it, and like I didn't really know how I felt about her too much at the time. We'd had an okay relationship, but it wasn't like, it was just exactly like what you'd expect. But over the course of that year with Maya and like kind of learning more about programming and stuff, I felt like she both pushed me to be better and like kind of gave me like the support I needed, sort of thing, and kind of showed me like she was like the first, I think, person to really show me what I could be doing or something, like that I could advance in like the physics field if I wanted to, and that like I actually had a lot of potential and that sort of thing, which was really nice to get directly from a professor, especially someone I respected as much as Maya. The funny thing is that in the end, though, I did decide like I didn't really want to go to grad school anyway, but it did kind of give me like this feeling that I needed to push, and that just because like someone gives you like a grade on something or something, it doesn't mean you're bad at it necessarily. Maybe you need to reflect on yourself. Like maybe you're part of the issue. Like you could have tried harder. You could have spent more time. You could have, maybe found a different way to be interested, that sort of thing. And that was the big take home from Maya. Her husband, um, Milun Rakovic, is an interesting fellow as well. And I think he kind of inspired me to remain silly, which I know that seems kind of strange, but like he was the most brilliant, I think, physicist on staff as far as like theoretical physics goes. He wrote a paper proving, I don't know, for anybody who watches Big Bang Theory, the one thing I know about the show, because I don't actually watch it myself, is that Sheldon's lifelong dream is to find the magnetic monopole, and it's kind of like almost like an inside joke with physicists because it's not really a thing. Sure, we've been looking for it, but no one really takes it that serious. But he decided to write a white paper to kind of like end the debate about it. And basically what he came up with is that there are any number of universes that could possibly contain a magnetic monopole, and the number of magnetic monopoles contained in a universe depends on like where on the scale you are. And it's just like this crazy, whoa kind of concept. And but when you got him like alone, he had this very like mad scientist way about him, and everything was like very much exactly like what you'd expect like from Albert Einstein, just like pulling a whiteboard, write some stuff on it, and like ask you if you're fine with it, and like you have no idea what's going on, but he just keeps talking, that kind of thing. And I think that attitude and like that drive kind of showed me that like I thought maybe I had to lose a part of myself, like as far as emotionally or that sort of thing to do it. And I think he really showed me that like you don't have to be that way. You don't have to do those things. You can remain yourself and still excel in these areas, that sort of thing. I skated through high school. I actually remember. It's funny. I was the smart kid in class who was like, yeah, but like I can figure out how much I need to do to get the B or get the A, and like I can like slough off. And like that's the thing is like I could have taken more opportunity to do that and maybe push myself a little bit further, especially. I think that basically it's kind of funny, but I really think that like the advice I would have gave myself is like, this is the good times. And like, it's good that you appreciated that because I did. But I think it's also important to like know that like some of this will help you, excel in other areas, and that there's other things to try and other things to be interested in. So
That's awesome. Adam, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. And it was a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so currently, I am a principal training specialist. So I actually kind of oversee the Grand Rapids training team right now. But I actually started out of college working at a furniture dealership. So I actually used the software that Configura owns for a little while. And then I came to Configura shortly after that. I started as a training and support specialist. I've kind of jumped jobs a little bit, but I've always stayed in kind of that training side of things. So I really love it. I love teaching the users. Been with Configura now, it's 4 years. So it actually was 4 years this month. I think the biggest skill that, especially that I've learned at Configura from this role, is just having empathy. That's something that I've personally myself had to grow coming to Configura, but just working with the users and understanding, trying to put yourself in their shoes a little bit, understanding their frustrations. It really helps, especially from the training and support side of things, to understand that and just try to keep the customers coming back to use the software and have the best experience for them. It's really funny with my educational path. So I went to Central Michigan University. My degree is in interior design. So I was a designer coming out of college, but I actually learned CET designer at Central Michigan. They were kind of the first college to spearhead that. And I actually was really angry when they added this because it tacked on an extra semester. And so I had to delay my graduation. But the awesome thing is I learned CET designer and I learned the office furniture industry, which many designers weren't getting at that time. So it really opened my eyes to just more than commercial design, or even residential design. And it's helped me land both my jobs out of college. So I'm actually very thankful for that course. Yeah, the one teacher or professor that comes to mind was actually at Central, Julie Zhao. I had her she pretty much taught all of our technology type software classes. And I remember when I first started off with interior design, I actually was really set on it in high school, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I was pretty sure of it. And then I got into college and I kind of started doing, maybe this isn't the right path for me. I'm not sure if this is going to work out. And she really pushed me to stay in the major, which was awesome. She's like, there might not be things with interior design that you're strong at on some things, but I can see that you're definitely strong, on the technology side of things. And that really encouraged me to kind of stay on that path. And I think that that's important because sometimes you get a little bit of that self-doubt when you start to learn a new skill, and it's not what you expected. But I'm really glad she was there. She was kind of like my cheerleader. And to this day, I even go back sometimes to her classes. I've gone back and taught CET designer to her class. And that was just kind of like a nice roundabout way to be like, hey, CET designer helped me out for in having this class. So yeah, I'm really, really happy that I had her and just had her in my corner.
It's a really cool experience to see things kind of go full circle, being able to go back to the class. So that's
Yes, yeah, it
fantastic.
was really kind of cool to be like, hey guys, I really am uh, here to tell you that CET designer is worth learning. I think the biggest thing is just to be present in every moment and really not sweat the small stuff. I feel like in high school, you're so wrapped up in the little things that are happening around you, and you're like, I want this to work out. I want to go in this path. You kind of have, for me, I had like this set thing thinking I'm going to do interior design. I don't need to worry about some of this other stuff. But there are so many things in high school that it's that bigger picture, those experiences that really shape you into going into college and into your future. And so I would say the advice I'd give myself is just I wish I was more present in a lot of those moments, either with friends or in classes, because I think I would have found passions a little bit quicker and just would have enjoyed those moments a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for your time today, Danny. It was great hearing a little bit about your story, and really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
So my job at Configura is an account manager, which basically means that I'm responsible for managing the relationships that we have with various partners in the commercial interiors industry. And that means helping them navigate through different communication channels with our developers, both externally and internally, and coordinating with different events and projects and stuff that they're working on. So our ecosystem is pretty complex, and it's my job to kind of ease some of that complexity with our partners. Uh, my professional background and educational background. I studied political science in college, and through that degree program, I interned at a state rep's office in Lansing, where it allowed me to focus on constituent, which is basically customer interactions through email, phone, face to face, things like that. And I found that I really enjoyed doing that, but not necessarily in a government capacity. So from there, I worked after graduating. I worked for the Historical Society of Michigan, which is a nonprofit also located in Lansing that works with community engagement, creates a couple magazines, and does some events for the public. So it allowed me to continue that relationship building through there. And then after that, I also worked at a couple Apple stores, both in Lansing and Grand Rapids, which allowed me to continue my customer focused interactions, but in more of a face to face and technology focused thing. So I found that I really loved working in technology and looking at technology as a way to improve people's day to day lives. So I developed a deep passion for that through Apple, and I also really enjoyed Apple's culture. So in my current role at Configura here, I'm able to do all of those things that I kind of just mentioned, as well as stay within the technology landscape and work for a smaller company that has really similar culture as Apple. But because it's smaller, I feel like I have a bigger stake in it, which I think is pretty awesome. The single most important skill or attribute that allows me to be successful is relationship building and understanding where that every individual or company or manufacturer that I'm working with comes from a different perspective, and to fully understand that and then build that relationship as it relates to Configura and our vision. With that comes a strong customer focus, strong organizational skills, because as I'm managing multiple accounts, it's important to keep all of those organized and understand when I should be communicating and what I should be communicating at any particular time. I also need to understand the roles of everyone that works at Configura internally, so I know who to go to and who to work with. So not only external communication and organization, but internal. Another thing that I use almost daily is the ability to learn on the fly. There's in the tech world, there's constantly things changing that I need to stay up to speed on, both in tech and in the commercial interiors industry. So I think that that's another big important thing. So so basically, as I kind of outlined earlier, I studied political science because in high school I took a AP government class that I really fell in love with, partially because of the teacher that taught it, but also just because of the content. Um, and through my studies in political science and history and that kind of stuff, I learned that I cared deeply about it. But there's other avenues to go about establishing those relationships and that kind of stuff. So at the root of it, I think political science is really building relationships and understanding how different organizations function. Government's one of the biggest organizations that we have, but some of the stuff is kind of similar to how a company functions and that kind of stuff. So understanding that everyone's coming from a different perspective, and that we can find common ground and work together and do that kind of stuff, I think is what led me down the path of going through the historical society and then to Apple and then eventually here at Configura, where it feels like it's a really good fit, both with everyone coming from different perspectives, but finding a common ground to understand how we can improve the day-to-day work of people that design spaces. Yeah, I had a college professor named Dr. Jolly, who I fully enjoyed, not just because his name was Dr. Jolly. He taught African American history at Saginaw Valley, which is where I went to school. The biggest thing that stuck with me was his passion for his career. And he had a deep passion for what he studied and taught and everything. And that went a long way for me. So I try to at least develop some fraction of that deep-seated passion that he has in the things that I do, which I think helps me be successful both at Configura with my passion for technology and understanding that technology is important to improve people's lives. Whether it's Apple stuff, people using their phones daily, or improving how people design spaces. He also opened my eyes because it was an African American history course, and I took multiple classes with him to understanding the multitudes of diverse viewpoints, and that everyone does come from different perspectives, and it's important to before you make any big decision to understand that there's usually some deeper influences and things that you should consider before making decisions or looping people into conversations and that kind of stuff. So the biggest piece of advice I would give my younger self would be to not necessarily jump down a career path either just because other people are doing it, and really explore broader options, because as we kind of outlined, like my career, even though it is kind of similar and can take some cues from political science, I probably could have went down a different path. I ended up at the right place, but I think it could have been a lot easier or a smoother journey to maybe go into tech from the beginning or account management kind of stuff. So just broaden your options and understand that there's more options than maybe just the one that either seems right at the time or following what other close friends or whatever are doing.
Awesome. Well, hey, Todd, really appreciate you joining us today, and happy birthday, everybody! It's Todd's birthday today, so really appreciate your time. Hope you have a great day, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Take care, guys.
All right, and we should be back. I wanted to introduce, obviously, I mentioned Kevin Johnson. He's our group manager, worked with him several times. A couple other people on his team, Jeff Marcellitis. Did I pronounce that right this time, Jeff?
Close enough.
Marcellitis. I did it wrong.
Marcellitis.
Marcellitis. All right. And he's an architect with Configura. Sarah Bradstreet. I better have gotten that one right.
Yep.
Okay. Business development, and this is about as easy as you can get. Eric Nelson, who's a project manager. So thank you, all of you, for joining us and joining our panel discussion today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw a couple of questions out to get going, but I definitely want to see your questions coming in. So until I see yours, I'm asking my questions, and really, I've asked these questions a lot of times, so I want to hear yours. But I will go ahead and kick it off because I don't see one yet. So I guess one I'm going to kind of heavy hit right off the get-go, and I've met with several employers before, and one thing that I keep hearing over and over again is that companies are really shifting their mindset away from simply just looking for the best talent available to trying to be a little more selective in the types of people they bring in to fit culture. Because I'm hearing more and more that culture really is critical. As one business leader said to me, we're not looking for just brilliant jerks, right? So they don't want a team full of brilliant jerks. So my question to you is, would you agree with or disagree with that statement? And how could you best explain Configura's approach to your hiring practices?
Yeah, I can take this one, and then anyone else jump in. Yeah, I think that's really important. Technical skills can be learned. Configura has some unique technical aspects to the way that our software is developed, so we really need to train people up on that initially anyways. But the cultural piece is critical. I think for me personally, defining what culture is and what culture isn't is something that's really important. Oftentimes people ask me about Configura's culture, and they highlight things like a casual work environment, or in the video you saw me in the massage chair, or the fact that maybe we have some cold pops in the fridge and snacks and fun activities like that. And I think all those things are important. We spend a lot of time at work. We have stressful jobs, and the ability to kind of unwind in some ways like that, I think, is pretty important. But I see those more as like environmental, aspects, which are important, but don't necessarily define a company's culture. For me, company culture is the way that we solve problems together, the way that we handle conflict, the way that we celebrate successes, and things that don't go so well. I think those are the things that truly define an organization's culture. Configura has a really collaborative culture, where not only allowed to, but everyone's expected to articulate new and exciting ways to do things, and we have spirited debates about that. I don't think differing opinions or conflict are a bad thing. Obviously you need to handle those in a respectful way, but I think that can really lead to some pretty cool innovation, and that's central to what we do as an organization.
Cool. All right, who else? Do you agree or disagree with Kevin's take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kevin 100%. I think culture is a huge thing for us here. It's something that we always evaluate when we're interviewing candidates. Obviously, there's other skills that we look for too, but I do think that culture is a really big factor in whether we hire someone or not, the fit with the culture. But other than that, everything that Kevin said is right. I agree.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Okay. Well, so we do have a question that has come in. So let's go ahead and share some of these questions. One, Stephen says that I work with middle school students with exploring different careers and developing their early stages of a career development plan. What advice do you have for middle school students when it comes to career planning?
So let me help out. So I have a bit of a unique path I've taken to get here to be a project manager here. I started off as a teacher for 7 years, went into development and did some development for a couple of years. And now I'm project managing. And when I made a career switch into the more technology oriented roles, one of the things I had to really consider was, I was making the shift and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? If I'm going to shift out of this, like, what am I going to land on that's going to be something that I'm going to be super happy with, that I'm going to enjoy? And I think the thing that I kind of zeroed in on was, what was the thing that I did when I was younger that nobody had to pay me to do? What was the thing that I would do all day and I could just get lost in, and it was, silly as it sounds, it was computers. At the time when I was in middle school, I got my first loan out. I had a paper route. I bought my own computer, built it, and I was doing these nerdy things that was just so much fun to me. It's just natural, right? And I think that is the sort of core thing that maybe they should focus in on is, what could you be so passionate about that, you would do it if nobody even paid you to do it? Because I think that would make you as happy as you could be in a career. So.
Awesome. Thanks.
I think going off of what Eric said, in middle school, I was a hardcore basketball player. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the WNBA. Obviously not. But it was when I was in middle school, I thought for sure I was going to be a math teacher or a dentist. Like that's where I was at. I'm clearly not either. But it's important to know that like keeping your options open, really kind of what Eric said, like what was I passionate about? I had no idea really when I got from middle school even to high school what I like for sure wanted to do, but I know that I genuinely get motivated by helping other people. So in my mind, it was like, okay, maybe it's not a set career, but what can I do that I can make a positive impact on someone's life or multiple people's lives? And I really like where we're at Configura. Like I like what we do. I like that our vision is to eventually get to helping with environmental impact and even the well-being of people. And I like that our other kind of missions are, staying active and getting involved in the community. So I would say just keep getting involved, keep learning, keep being kind of a student mentality, but ultimately find what you're truly passionate about, even if it's not a specific role.
Yeah, if I can add to it, I mean, in my mind, I would think that it's easier than ever to get students interested in programming classes, right? Everything that our world runs on at this point is on a computer of some kind, whether it's on your phone or whatever, right? Like everything that a kid is interested in is built off programming. So I feel like I would leverage that to motivate someone to take these classes, Personally, that's what I would think. And that's what got me into it, right? I played a lot of video games growing up, but I was like, oh, I want to make video games. So I started taking classes for that. And I didn't end up in a place where I'm making video games, but still ended up in a place where I'm like scratching that same itch, working in like a software that has a 3D space and you're figuring out how to interact with objects and what works best. So yeah, that's what my advice would be.
Awesome. And that, Jeff, your response directly answered Diane's question about what about those kids who are taking programming classes. So thanks for addressing that. And for those who are not familiar, and I know we have a lot of counselors here, especially if you're a middle school or elementary counselor, particularly the elementary counselors involved, or if you're an administrator, if you're not involved with Hour of Code, that is something you definitely need to get involved with. It's a great way to introduce kids into coding and find that there's a lot, it's fun to do and it's exciting, and is I think, who was it? Was it Eric? What you talked about, like you're just getting a computer to start playing on because you want to make the video games, not be the ones just playing them. So that's great answer. All right, so I have another question from Steve.
Let me just say one thing real quick, Eric.
Please
just putting a pub in for Hour of Code. I volunteered, and I'm not a developer by any means. Like they barely let me touch computers in the office because that's not my expertise. But I've served as an Hour of Code volunteer the last 3 years, and it's an absolutely awesome experience to see the excitement in elementary students' faces to learn the basic foundations of the way programs are developed. So if your school doesn't participate, I highly encourage you to be able to, explore that a little bit, because it's a pretty awesome experience.
Awesome, thank you. I want to make sure I circle back to this question from Steve. He asked, does your office host students career exploration, or do you offer any type of job shadowing experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that, I'll pub the ISD here. A lot of the opportunities that we have are partnerships with the ISD. So we've signed up to participate in Groundhog Shadow Days in the past. We've done the, I'm gonna probably mess up the name of the program internally there at the ISD, but the after hours events where students and their parents can come
Talking
in and
tours?
yeah,
Talking
talking.
tours.
We've hosted talking tours, and outside of that, we're always willing, if it possible, and if at all possible. Obviously, 2020 makes it a little bit difficult, but we're always, open to conversations around ways to be able to engage with students and help answer questions. So. Absolutely. We're always looking for ways to not only support students, but then also educators, because you guys have such direct access and impact on the kids. So.
Awesome. Yeah, and Krista has posted, for those who are following along in the chat, she posted a link to the talking tours, and now it is just like this with everything we're doing this year. We're doing everything virtually. And so in many ways, while for some people, they like the face-to-face engagement, they want to see the business. Plus side, I'm always trying to look for the silver lining, is that in some ways, as long as you have access to technology, so there is that barrier, for some, it's a matter of not being able to get there. So in some ways, doing things virtually is breaking down some barriers in some areas, because now we can get people to just jump online with their family, or even just kids by themselves. All right, so another question, and we've got about time for maybe one or two more questions. Unless I see one, I'm going to jump in. What is, and this is for any of you, what is one thing? I'm going to make it a two-part question, so you can answer one or both. What is one thing that you learned in school, in middle school, high school, elementary, it could be any point, that you learned in school that you realize you do utilize daily in your job at the most basic level? So whether it be in any subject area, a skill that you learned in school that you're using. Secondly, the flip side of that, what is one thing that you wish you had learned in school that would have better prepared you for your work?
Yeah, I have one that I wish. So like, I feel like through school taking programming classes, a lot of times I would start from like a blank slate on an assignment. Like it would just be like, here's some requirements, program this thing. And I wish that I had got more opportunity to spend time looking at other people's work, because that's a thing that you do all the time in the real world, right? You're not starting from scratch a lot. You're starting from something that already exists. So really trying to figure out how another person's brain works, right? Instead of just my own, would have been an interesting experience. And I think that probably applies to more than just code, but that's my experience, is not getting that opportunity to really like dig into how someone else's brain works when it comes to writing code.
That's a great point, Jeff. Honestly, and education doesn't really do that. But I mean, we do in some cases. We do peer review, but just I don't think a ton of that. It comes down to the teacher to be the grader of assignments and determine whether or not it's accurate or not. But really, we could be doing a better job of just being really honest. We could be doing a better job of making sure that there's more peer review. I think sometimes the fear is that, I'm just going to speak for myself, having been a classroom teacher, is that, well, that's the blind leading the blind. If a kid doesn't know what they're doing, how are they supposed to provide feedback? But I think you could flip that and saying, how do you get better at offering feedback if you don't practice doing that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think even if they talk about, maybe the person reviewing doesn't understand something, right? So then maybe they ask the person that they're reviewing to tell them more about it, and then they learn just through it. We use that a lot today at our office. We do code reviews, and not only is it an opportunity for the person whose code we're reviewing to learn and become better, maybe someone in the room doesn't understand anything about what that person's working on, and they learn just through that person talking about it and demoing it to us.
Gotcha.
So
excellent.
It's a two-way tool for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We have time for one or two more people to respond to this question.
I would say not necessarily like a specific subject, but we did in my school, we did a lot of like group projects and group presentations. But I think that really does help, because in any job I've had, I do a lot on a team. And so when there's always some negative connotations with group, sometimes people feel like they're the only one doing something. But I think when you're put in multiple group settings and team settings, it helps you really utilize communication and setting clear direction and expectations. And and even getting along and making things work with people you don't normally work with. Because in my role, I mean, that's kind of me on a daily basis, is working with a ton of different people and making sure we're all on the same page, really.
Awesome. And again, if you're an administrator or counselor out there, you're hearing from people in the real world, if you will, that are saying that these are skills that are required. And unfortunately, some of our teachers are awesome. I've seen a lot of teachers doing great group projects, but unfortunately, it's oftentimes the exception to the rule. So, so that's a great call. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think I'll just say real quick, one of the things I wish I would have realized the importance of earlier on is the idea of curiosity, right? Trying to figure out how and why things work and how they're done. You know, that's something that I think we all do every single day in our jobs, but I really didn't think about really early on. I also think, going to what Jeff mentioned earlier, we have the opportunity to really help support the curiosity of others by the way that we help others learn something that we know. So if someone comes to us and asks a question, it isn't always necessarily just give them the answer and move on with their day. Like, we can help ask questions and we can help them, you know, solve the problem on their own, which I think leads to a deeper level of understanding. And I think that kind of represents a different aspect of curiosity, but still really, really important. You know, that's something that I wish I would have had a better grasp of early on.
I was said it's open to everybody, but Eric, you are a former classroom teacher, so I think I want to hear your perspective on this.
So yeah, so I was for background, I taught chemistry for 7 years, AP level, everything basically. And I think one of the things that has kind of been a mainstay through all of that, and you know, one of the things that I learned early on in science classrooms, learning first and then applying things as a teacher, and now in the work that I do, it's just being able to critically think about things. It's so at the heart of almost everything I do, and it comes at you in all sorts of different ways. You know, there's oftentimes I've been in the room with other developers who have been in their craft for many, many years, and all I have to do is ask questions, you know, get them to think about what they're thinking about, you know, take it from different angles, you know, and that really kind of leads the discussion to a healthier, better place. And I think that is a big thing that I think has carried me through all the various careers I've had, and helping to guide others in that. So.
Cool. All right, I'm going to shift gears to another question. And honestly, this is not in my list of questions, but something that has kind of come up through the conversation today. And again, for those who are watching and viewing, please come in with your questions. I know sometimes you don't know what to ask until you hear something that really sparks it, but please feel free to throw your questions out. So this one, I have 3 kids in school. I was a former classroom teacher. And one of the trends I see today is kids allowing to everyone from elementary and even into high school, kids submitting their work and then getting a grade on it. And if it's a low grade, they can go back and fix it and bring it back and resubmit it to try to get a better grade. And I see positives and negatives to that. The downside is kids not learning that, like, this is the work and this is what it is, and being able to accept the grade that they've gotten. Case in point, my son just recently got marked down for something because he forgot one component in there, but it was a pretty critical component. And he was really struggling because he worked really, really hard on that. And he's like, well, how come I can't fix it and turn it back in? At the same time, there's also merit to be said about, like, work is iterative, right? And so it's a work in progress until you take it and you fix it and then you bring it back and you try to improve it. So from a business standpoint, do you see value in the fact of allowing students to be able to read, turn in work, to try to improve it and make it better? Or is there a downside to keep getting it back in, or just to keep it getting a better grade?
I also have 2 younger siblings, and I've seen exactly what you're talking about. And I like the idea of them being able to, you know, turn something in, get feedback, and then relearn. So it really, like, that's kind of how I learn, is like through mistakes and just through doing it over and over. But I think like the school they go to, they do a really good job of you can only, like, when you redo it, you only get a max of like 80%. You can't redo it to get the full grade. So it keeps you accountable to try to do it right the first time. And it's not on every single document. It's only on certain things that they can redo it. But I like it if it's done well, just because I think you end up learning more by redoing it and even getting, feedback the first time.
Yeah, and I think in the tech industry, it's actually like a great thing to be able to resubmit. I think a lot of times, like I know for sure when I first started working at Configura, I would almost get like paralyzed by the problem I was trying to solve because I tried to think of every possible outcome so that I could do it right the first time, when really I just needed to trial and error my way through it, and I would get it done so much faster. And I would still run into all the problems and solve them, but I just wouldn't sit there doing nothing, you know? So I think, at least for this industry, for software development, I think that, it's probably a good thing for development minds.
Yeah, my experience when I went back to get a degree in computer science, it was a 1-year accelerated program where I had coursework that was, you just got to knock out these problems in development, and I would basically solve all of them, no problem. And then I never revisited what I'd written, what I'd done, and I just kind of spew out the answers. I'd be, great. Teachers thought, this works. But then I got to a real, job involving development, and it's not what development is at all. You have to, be able to submit something to a peer review, like we've talked about, and to have it to be assessed. Well, I see what you did there. It works, but you're probably missing X, Y, and Z with that. And having it kind of give you that feedback and have the time to go back and reassess your own work. And I think that is a big thing. So.
All right, I haven't seen any other questions, so I'm going to keep going back to mine. I'm depending on you participants here to come up with a few more. So another question that I have, and again, having done this over and over and over and meeting with people like Kevin on a regular basis, one of the things that we talk about all the time is types of skills or traits you're looking for from a new hire. And so I don't know which of our panelists either interview or have people working for them, or at least sit in interviewing communities. But whether you're hiring people or you just have new coworkers coming to be on your team, what are some of the skills that you would say are most critical in the workforce today? And then second part of that is, what would you say? Well, let's just answer that and then we'll address the next part. What skills would you say are the most critical?
Yeah, I mean, I know for like our programming teams, I'm looking for someone who's pretty independent and self-motivated. We're not like a micromanaging company. So I want someone who can keep themselves moving, grow passionate about like what they're working on, and just kind of go at it, where they don't need a direction for everything, right? They have an overall like big project that they're working on, and they know how to keep it moving forward without me telling them each step. I think that's a thing that we look for. Other than that, I feel like the soft skills change a lot. Like sometimes we need like a head down person that just gets stuff done, right? But then other times we need someone that shows a little bit more of a leadership quality and can elevate the people around them. I think it kind of depends. We really try to make like a balanced team here. So I think it shifts a lot, like what soft skills we're looking for based on the current state of the team. But I think like those things, we kind of go back and forth between like a real heads down programmer that just gets it done, and a person that, like I said, has those leadership qualities, has really good communication skills. In our line of work, we talk to customers almost every day. So even the developers are customer facing every day. So the communication part's pretty important too, to at least have a good number of developers around that have some communication skills, which is hard to find, but it's it's a thing that we look for.
I think the thing that I'll add to that, Jeff, absolutely agree with everything he said. I think one of the things that's important also is the ability to be kind of introspective and have a real honest assessment of kind of the work that we've been able to do and our own strengths and weaknesses. I participate in a lot of interviews, and I think being able to identify individuals that can look back at specific scenarios and identify what their impact was, what went well, what they would have been able to do differently. I think that's really, really important. We're constantly, assessing, having retrospectives, trying to improve the way that we do things. And it's a more difficult skill, I think, than people really realize. Being able to do that, I think oftentimes we'll be in interviews and we'll ask a question around like a great success, and the individual might talk about a group project or a larger thing that they've been involved in, but the ability to pinpoint their specific contribution to that is something that people have a difficult time identifying. And I think those things are really, really important because of the continuous improvement type of environment that we try to operate in.
All right, in case you haven't answered, I know Eric and Sarah haven't, so I'm going to flip the question. So what are the skills that you see to be most lacking in some of the people that not to call out individuals, but some of the things that you see, whether it be from younger people, new hires, that you say like, well, these are some of the things that we just, for whatever reason, schools are not teaching this and they need to.
So I'm pretty brand new to Configura. I'm a 1 month in here, but I can talk about my experience in my previous job where I was on sort of the hiring committee group that was looking at prospective developers and QA as well. I would say kind of what Jeff was saying, it's in our field, it's sort of the magic of having the technical skills and the soft skills to go with it, because I think that's when you get the true leaders in the group, the people who can take things and not only understand them, apply them, but they can also mentor and guide others in it. You know what I mean? And I think that lifts everybody up along with them. And I think that's something that's very hard to teach, but I think it comes from a place of a willingness to learn, and always growing. And that's kind of the mentality of a computer science major, as a person who doesn't understand just one particular, I know how to write in Java. That's the only thing I know. That's not what it means. It means you understand that you're going to have to be asked to learn all sorts of new things and to apply them. So I think, that's a tough thing to kind of teach, but it as best we can. I think it should be something to focus on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of took the words out of my mouth, was having that kind of like I see a comment down here, growth mindset, but that student mentality where you, instead of, always, I guess, I don't know if it would be deferring the accountability, but really learning for yourself so you can answer and you can step up and do the things, instead of just going to certain people and always kind of asking the same questions, things like that. Even communication goes a long way, not just in this company, but in other companies I've been with. Communication, I think, sometimes kind of falls behind and lacks. So getting, I guess, something around communication in there. That's a broad topic. But
It is, but it's a critical skill. Absolutely. So communication and I heard you kind of briefly mention like deferring accountability, not wanting to take responsibility. And that's sometimes a thing that we see among younger people today, like, well, that's not my fault, or shifting the blame or whatnot. But a couple of call outs I see Katie mentioned. She said she really liked the advice about like not being paralyzed by the fear. There's so many students who are afraid to try things on their own and make mistakes, and definitely see that as thing that in education. And I just wonder if that's just part of our culture, because what you're saying is there's a lot of group work and teamwork and still needing peer review. But in K-12 education, it seems like it's kind of the opposite. We work in silos, you're responsible for your own work. And so, and as a result of that, you turn it in, and if you don't get a good grade, then you start to get paralyzed. What I'm hearing is there's got to be some type of a balance, because it does allow for mistakes and it allows from learning from them. We have time for one more question, and Diane wrote one question. What specific high demand areas do you think will be in the market in the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to stuff in the IT world? I'll focus on that, I guess. And then are there any suggestions for majors or minors that you think that would be best utilized? I will say this, one thing that I find interesting, I mean, Eric was a teacher himself, right? One thing that I find more and more is most employers nowadays, I shouldn't say most, a lot of employers look beyond the degree requirement. And Kevin, you could probably speak to that, beyond the degree requirement and more about the skill sets. But that said, if we're trying to help students kind of find a career path, where would you say in the IT world in the next 5 to 10 years is the real growth opportunities?
Yeah, I think I'll address the first thing that you said there, Eric. I think one of the things that I absolutely love about working for a kind of small to mid-sized company is we have the opportunity to consider candidates and individuals from a pretty wide variety of educational and career paths. And hopefully you've been able to pick that up today, not only the people that we had highlighted in the video, but the individuals that we have participating in the panel discussion today. And that's fantastic. So I know amongst our development team, we have people with degrees in science and mathematics and definitely computer science, but then some individuals with no degrees. So when it comes to the majors or minors, there are a lot of different paths that you can, get to a career in technology now. Now, I'm not going to say that it's that way in every organization because everyone has their own standards, but I absolutely love the ability that we can consider folks with unique backgrounds there. Maybe I'll defer to Jeff to talk about any specific high demand areas, see if he has any thoughts on that specifically. I mean, I think we all kind of hear the statistics around, the shortage that we're going to have in the tech industry over the next, 5 to 10 years. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about what the specific majors and minors are. I think that skills that I think we're going to find more important is just through like I've gone to some conferences and stuff where you listen to keynotes and maybe it's about interior design and you think that doesn't apply to me as a developer at all. And then you hear the person talk about how different colors and material types affect different generations and how it makes them feel differently. I think stuff like that is going to be really important going forward. Like user experience stuff is going to just grow more and more important. I can think of when I've been at Configura for almost 9 years now, and I think of what the software looked like when I started compared to what it looks like now. And it's small changes that we made, making buttons have rounded edges and stuff like that, or just a little bit of shading added to the buttons. It just makes the software feel so much cleaner and stuff. So I think that that's going to be more important. It's not going to be, a bunch of people that lock themselves in the basement and sit in the dark. And it's just, it's getting out a little more into the real open world where, we're going to have to start thinking about all this stuff. So I think, like I said, I'm not sure where that goes, but I think it's getting more visual than it ever has been, right? With AR and VR. And it's more about a whole experience today than it ever has been. And I would think it continues to go down that trend, I would think. So I don't know if that helped at all, but those are my thoughts.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
Right before the pandemic, I actually sat in Software GR is a cool group. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they'll do panel discussions at different presentations. And they were talking about how even in Grand Rapids alone in the next 3 to 5 years, we will be a huge IT, tech, and medical hub. And they kept talking around, I don't remember specific percentages and numbers, but those 3 major, whether it's software, IT, and healthcare, medical, they were just Grand Rapids is going to be booming in those 3 major industries. And it was just really cool to hear. And kind of second to what Kevin and Jeff had said with maybe not a specific degree, but I've even seen a lot more where it'll say you need this degree or 3 years experience. I like that it really is about getting involved, getting experience in whatever it is. That's huge. It goes a lot further than a degree most of the time.
Awesome. Well, we are unfortunately out of time. I really, really appreciate the conversation, the robust conversation you guys have had, all the well thought out answers to our questions. So I want to thank each of our panelists for Kevin and Eric and Sarah and Jeff. I want to just wrap up for the rest of our educators on just a couple of upcoming things. We started a new program called Educator Spotlight Series. And our next one will be November 2nd. So next Monday we have, and it's in the evening from 6:30 to 7, but you can go ahead and get on. If you can't find that, if you can't get on, it's in the PD Hub, but if you can't get into that or you don't have able to do that, just like everything else, we're going to be offering this on demand. So within a few days after the event, we'll make it available to download and watch, at your convenience. And of course, those offer for sketches. These are only 30-minute sessions, so you get a half sketch for it. November 23rd is Amanda Barber over in Discovery Elementary. Our next Educators in Industry event is November 17th with Founders Brewing Company. Unfortunately, it's not an on-site visit. We talked about happy hour, and so that might during the school day, so I don't think we can do that. But we will be meeting with founders, and then after that, 20-minute live and entertainment industry. Zello and Career Cruising are doing workshops that started on Tuesday, and our first one for Career Cruising is today. So on Tuesdays will be Zello, and on Thursdays will be Career Cruising. And on December 7th, we're going to be bringing back what we had a few years back, what we called our Career Readiness Network. That will be doing the school day, offering it for schools. Last few things that I wanted to mention. I did mention there was a survey. In order for you to get sketches for today's event, you need to complete the survey. So that is listed at bit.ly/EII-sketch. bit.ly/EII-sketch. And the 6-digit code you need to be able to complete the survey is 910358. 910358. And so yes, the sketch, Krista, would you help by typing that into the chat box? bit.ly/EII-sketch, and the code is 910358. And I think Krista will put that in for us. And just again, wanted to wrap up by saying thank you to all of our speakers today. Want to thank you for everybody at Configura. Kevin was willing to say he was willing to share his email address. So if you had follow-up questions, say, hey, Kevin, how can we get involved? How can we get students to job shadow, even if it's a virtual one? What does that look like? His email address is up there on the screen, kevin.johnson@configura.com. And again, I can also send a follow-up email afterwards to people with that code. And sketch, Krista, if you'd also put the code in there, that 6-digit code. But again, thank you everybody for your time. We really appreciate it. And everybody, with that, I want to say thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Configura. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin. Thank you, Sarah.